Welcome to JR, everybody. We've been spending the last week with the Hyundai Kona N. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with this is Hyundai's subcompact or micro SUV, which, as you can see, since you have eyeballs, is really a hatchback. But they have to call it an SUV so people will buy it. And they call it an SUV because it has actually more ground clearance. Actually, it has more ground clearance in this fully performanced out N model than any other Kona, which is a bit odd, but we'll get to that later. But basically, what you have here is the most powerful, the most sporty Kona that you can get. It kind of splits the difference between like a VW GTI and a Golf R. So this thing is about $34,200 as base. It comes in one trim, it comes in one transmission, so the only option that you can get is one of the 4 different paint colors. Now there are 2 free paint colors. This black is one of them, and then I think red is the other free one, and then there's a white that's $400, and there's a performance blue, which is the N color, that's $400. So fully topped out, you're still under $35,000, but here in this murdered out spec, it's $34,200, I believe. So you get a lot of car for the money, but let's talk about the way that this thing looks. Now, I think Mr. Bill Hall also thinks that this looks pretty good.
Yeah, I like this spec. It's more subtle than the performance blue would be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on the front fascia. You have these 3 kind of inlets that are fake here. You've got the grille, you've got the front intakes, you've got side curtains. These are functional aero pieces. So there's a lot going on. So I think the black kind of helps keep things a little bit more subtle. The white really shows everything. And you do get some nice different textures and colors. This is more of like a gunmetal. This is more of like a metallic-y finish. And then of course you've got your red splitter.
And that's not optional. That has to come like that.
You have to get the red.
Only way to get it.
Unless you get the red paint, then it's black. I don't know why, but anyway. They do the separate running light thing up front and in the back. I think they pull it off here. There are some manufacturers that pull it off. There's some that don't. So that's your running light projector. We talked about the air curtain.
I'm not a huge fan. I like it on the rear with the tail lights on this versus the headlights, but I think it looks good overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. The thing that I really like, though, from the side, and even calling it an SUV, is the fact that you still get body-colored and full gloss wheel arches.
Absolutely.
It's not pretending to be rugged. We don't need the scratchy black plastic, so I'm glad that they keep it body-colored and then also gloss. And then here we've got Pirelli PZero tires. These are a really nice performance-oriented tire. It's interesting because on the Elantra N, you actually get a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, so they went with the Pirelli set for the Kona. It's wrapped around a 19-inch wheel. You've got your red N brake calipers. They're of course an upgraded brake from something bigger. I think they actually took it off of a Sonata or a Tucson.
I like those
or
wheels.
At least in the case of the Elantra.
Little two-tone, like a silver and the black. I like those wheels.
We apologize for the wind. We're filming in front of what would be, I guess, technically AmFam Field, but it's Miller Park to the death. But anyway, super short wheelbase here. You actually get a shorter wheelbase in this Kona than you would get in the Elantra N. So that helps the car feel a little bit more athletic, nimble, darty. Also makes it a little bit less stable at higher speeds, but it's not something you're really going to notice behind the wheel. Ultimately, profile, it's black. You've got the red splitter.
N there.
And then
it's a nice little detail.
But yeah, all black mirror caps, roof rails. You do have roof rails, and then your door handles as well.
No sunroof, which we'll talk about that
overhang
when we go inside.
Right. But here in the back, you can see you've got the double humped rear spoiler along with your kind of F1 style rear tail light.
Yeah.
You got this on the Veloster N that we drove earlier. Was it last year that we drove the Veloster?
Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, I love this spoiler and the little rear light there.
It's kind of cool.
See, this is kind of where I think that they pull off the dual
so your
tail
reverse
light
and here,
then the reverse light
and then your blinker as well.
Blinkers. I think it looks good here. Obviously, massive diffuser, 2 huge exhaust outlets.
Totally functional, totally real. I watched a Mercedes video and that exhaust is not even anywhere near real. So. But I think the thing that I kind of like about the exterior, and this last thing I'll say here, is just like, it's a bit flamboyant. It's a bit over the top. It's a bit much. And I kind of like that it's not trying to be as subtle or subdued as like a Golf. This is more of like a youthful personality, a more boy racer feel. And I think it's probably a good time to step in the interior with Paulo.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, all right then. That was not bad.
That's obviously one of the awesome features that you get with this car is the noises that it makes. But let's talk about the interior for a second. Obviously, they had to cut costs somewhere. This being $35,000, and I think you can obviously tell it was kind of done in the interior, and I'm okay with that because they didn't skimp on other parts. So a lot of hard plastics, not a lot of different materials in here. Yeah, it's scratchy and it,
This is kind of softer, but this is pretty hard.
Yeah. It's pretty basic in here. You got Alcantara seats with like a fake leather. I don't know if they call it vegan, but your N in the stitching here. You know, in the Elantra N and the Veloster, it was kind of the light up logo.
I like
that was sick. But if we talk about what this thing does have, I think it has all the tech that you really want. So you have a digital dash with like all your readouts here. If you're in your N mode on like what your oil temp is, obviously the door's open, but it would show you what like your torque is, what your boost is, your engine temp. It tells you kind of where all your levels are for your like engine, steering, suspension. There's a turbo and a torque. And then like in here, you know, you have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, like what more could you want? And then you also have this like more in-depth N mode stuff, so it tells you what your throttle is, what your oil temp is again, engine temp, lap timer. You can pick
get like full telemetry with your revs and everything.
Yeah,
cool.
what gear you're in. You can pick your circuits.
Yeah,
and
so I got
lap
to go
times.
to Atlanta with Hyundai to test this thing on the track, which was really cool. And then we do a bunch of stuff at Road America.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
Did you guys use this feature when you were doing there?
I did not. No. I did not have the mental capacity.
We have a
one more thing real quick, just up here. So this is the thing that really impresses me is if you slide over from the end screen, you can control everything. So you can custom toggle everything from like your suspension to your exhaust to your transmission to your steering. So to have something like adaptive suspension and this much customizability on something under 35 grand is just incredible.
Right, and you actually have two custom modes that you can make. So one if you were, you know, just putzing around town, and then another one for the track or whatever you want to do. This one I really like custom 2, so we basically have like everything on max you can do except for the suspension. We have it on normal because we'll get to it, but my gosh, is this a stiff ride.
My back, my 30-year-old, which is really like an 80-year-old's back, can only take so much.
No, I mean it's brutal, but we'll talk about it. So this is kind of also where you can control what mode you're in. You have a drive mode selector here, so you have normal, eco, sport, snow, and then obviously your N modes here. You also have this NGS button, which basically gives you overboost for about 20 seconds. It adds 10 horsepower. I'm trying to think what else I need to mention about the interior.
You got like physical climate controls, which is kind of nice.
I would say the one thing it's missing in here that I wish it had was adaptive cruise control.
Yeah, that's weird because it has the lane keep, and it actually does a pretty good job.
It does do a good job.
You know, all the Hyundai systems that we've tested, they all do a pretty good job, but to not have adaptive cruise is weird to me.
I wish it had lane keep, adaptive cruise control, and I wish it had a softer suspension.
Yes.
And I also wish it had a sunroof. Those are my only 3 complaints on the interior. Otherwise, I think it's fine. You have adequate headroom. These seats are comfortable.
Yeah.
The rear
seat's kind of small.
The rear seats, from a knee perspective, are a little bit small.
This actually has moved up pretty far. So I do have about an inch, but generally, if I'm going to sit behind Paulo, who's 6'7", 6'12",
yeah, 6'2",
6'46", like I'm not, like my knees are in the back of the seat right now. They're resting up against the back of the seat, so it doesn't feel great. And then it's weird to me, the fact that you don't get a sunroof in here because you can only get a sunroof in the Elantra N with the DCT. You won't get it with the manual, and this only comes as the DCT, so to not have a sunroof is a little bit strange.
Yeah, it's odd.
But yeah, headroom is great.
And then just talking about the trunk real quick. So it's obviously smaller. We'll go back there and look, but it's obviously going to be smaller. Even though this is an SUV, it's going to be smaller than some of its SUV competitors. So it actually has less trunk room space than a CX-30, but if you put the seats down, you actually get more space than a CX-30.
Yeah, with the seats down, you have a big amount of space.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You got, of course, a little extra storage here for some divider and whatever.
Yeah, that's nice.
Kind of standard stuff.
So let's go for a ride. I'm going to let Matt drive. We'll talk about our driving impressions.
All right, behind the wheel, we're just going to pin it, and I'm going to just not put my hands on the wheel so you can see the torque steer.
It is a little wet, though. I had to. Woo!
I mean, it makes all the right noises, right?
It does make all the right noises.
It makes great sounds. It does have torque steer and it does have understeer on throttle, but when you're not on throttle and you're just pushing it through some S's, this actually is not a bad little course.
No, it's nice.
You can hear everything kind of floating around back there. But okay, let's cool it down for a sec. I'll just flip it into like normal while we get around this garbage truck.
Yeah, it is 2 lanes.
Let's talk about what we have here. So we have the 2-liter turbo, 4-cylinder, right? 276 horsepower,
Yep.
289 pound-feet.
Correct.
So it makes quite a lot of power. Again, it kind of splits the GTI and the Golf R in terms of power. And then with the NGS, with the overboost function, that's when you get that 286 horsepower. So you get that extra 10 for that 20 seconds. And then it has to, cool down or recharge itself for, I don't know what, like a couple minutes? I don't actually know, but it does have to like recharge. You can't just keep pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing it.
0 to 60, 4.8 seconds.
Yeah, it's definitely not slow.
No, it's not slow.
It is stiff. So we'll go back up into N mode. So you got the 2 N buttons on your steering wheel here. The hollow one will be your custom 1, and then the filled in one will be your custom 2. But if you're not in N mode, geez,
It's so bumpy.
If you're not in N mode and you hit either one of them once, then you just go into like N standard.
Which is what we're in, and the suspension is just so stiff.
Yeah. But you can kind of see here, and we're in the wet, so the grip isn't phenomenal. But the front end is going to start giving up a little bit. You really have to kind of work for the corner. You have to work to stay on the ground in your seat a little bit.
I feel like with
It's
the torque
so
steer,
stiffly damped.
you also just have to fight it a lot more than I want to fight it. That's why I love the Civic Type Rs, because they've just perfected this front wheel drive sports car. I think there still needs to be a little bit more here. But I love everything else besides that.
Jesus.
I love the noises it makes. I love the price. I love the look. Yeah, I do just wish that they sorted that out a little bit, because it adds just another level of complexity to the drive.
So I understand the people that are making the argument for the torque steer, saying that like it gives you something to like challenge yourself with, but people love the Civic Type R because it's like front wheel drive perfected. It's like the magical differential from Honda. And yeah, it is definitely something that you have to be aware of if you're going to drive this thing near its limit. The other thing that you have to be aware of, as you've seen, is the insane damping on here. It's nice to have the adaptive dampers. It's nice to be able to soften things back, but when you're at full tilt, when you're at like full stiffness in N mode, it just beats you in the ass.
I still think that it can be even. I think just go straight. You can do a circle at the.
Yeah.
I still think that even the normal mode could be even more comfortable. I think that it could.
I would agree.
I wish it was dialed in a little bit more. But another thing I wanted to talk about real quick was MPG. So they claim, I think it's 20 city, 27 highway, which as standalone is not really like that great. We've been averaging 22
from a 2-liter.
Doing a mix of that. Yeah, from a 2-liter, 22 is. And it's not like you're buying this thing for, MPG, but it's like I have a G70 3.3 twin turbo. I get better gas mileage than this on an average, and I beat the shit out of my G70 way harder than I went on this thing because it was raining and I couldn't do anything with front wheel drive cars.
Yeah, another thing, and you'll notice it when we get up onto this bit of pavement here, and you just heard it as we were going through that curve, is the sound that comes in here. Like, listen to all this cabin noise. And sure, you've got really thin Pirelli PZeros, and you have a pretty big wheel, and it's pretty stiffly damped, and it's a cheap car, so they haven't layered it up with like a bunch of acoustic glass or anything, but it's very stiff and it's pretty loud. I do feel like the Elantra N kind of better hits the more dailyable aspect. It's a bit softer, it's a bit more quiet, it's a bit more comfortable, and I think I like that about it. So let's put it through this turn here, and then I'll let you get behind the wheel. So we'll flip it back up into N.
I'll just let you drive.
Good. Flip it up into N. So no throttle here. And then as we start to get on throttle, we start to see the car push. But it's really not bad. I mean, the grip is good. The thing that I really like about this car is the gearbox.
Yeah,
it's a fun transmission. It's really sharp. But yeah, going through that bit of pavement here and the stiffest dampers feels like F1 porpoising to me.
It really does, like we're in a Ferrari.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's a good car. It's a fun car, but there are 2 compromises, and it's really just kind of the stiffness and kind of the torque steer.
I'm really surprised that and they obviously have data behind this, but they think that they're going to sell more of these than the Veloster N.
Oh, 100%.
And I just think, I feel like this car is tailored towards people within their 20s and maybe early 30s.
Yeah.
And I'm just surprised that those individuals would prefer this over the Veloster N.
Because the Veloster is so small.
It is.
And it only has 3 doors. The back seat is basically unusable, and the hatch itself is like smaller than like a Civic hatch, or a Civic sedan trunk.
I just wish they would have made that one a little bit,
small.
like make that hatch a little bit bigger than
I love the Veloster. It's weird. The 3 doors thing is
I love
weird.
it too.
It's a great car.
I think I liked the Elantra N more than this as well, just because I liked manual.
Yeah.
I still had obviously the torque steer issue in there as well, but
yeah, all of the
Yeah.
N cars get the same powertrain, same transmissions. This obviously just doesn't come with the stick. So, do you want to hop in?
No, I'll let you drive. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to drive, and the tires are sticky, and like for $35,000, I feel like it's a good deal.
Yeah, I think dynamically you get so much car for your money at $35,000. But if you're expecting a luxury car, don't. That might be a good way to end it.
I think so.
All right.
Thanks, guys.